Here's something nobody tells you about the golden age of piracy. Most of what people think they know is wrong. Eye patches, buried treasure, walking the plank. That stuff is mostly myth. But the real story is far more interesting, because the actual golden age of piracy lasted only about 10 years. It was fueled by a massive job crisis created by a government that had no idea what it was unleashing, and eventually ended because that same government hired a former pirate to destroy the pirate world from the inside. In 1713, the War of the Spanish Succession ended. Britain, France, and Spain signed a peace treaty, and overnight, thousands of sailors who had spent years legally attacking enemy ships as privateers were out of work. No pension, no compensation, no plan. Just one message: thanks for your service, now figure it out. And these men had one skill that still paid: taking ships. So a lot of them did exactly that. They stopped pretending to be legal. They kept doing the same job, just without the paperwork. Nassau. But piracy needs a base, and the perfect one was already sitting in the middle of the Caribbean shipping routes: New Providence in the Bahamas and its main town, Nassau. Nassau had a deep harbor, a weak fort, and almost no real government. The last royal governor had given up on it. So for a while, Nassau wasn't really a city, it was a vacuum, and pirates noticed. By 1715, crews were moving in fast. Captain Benjamin Hornigold was one of the first to turn Nassau into a pirate stronghold, and before long, the harbor was packed with outlaws, renegades, and former privateers looking for their next payday. At its peak, Nassau may have held well over 1,000 pirates at once. That's not a rumor, that's a pirate city. And they even had a name for themselves: the Flying Gang. Now, here's the part the British Empire should have found terrifying. This wasn't random chaos, it was organized. Really organized. Pirate rules. Pirate crews in Nassau ran on articles-written agreements every man signed before a voyage. And for the early 1700s, these rules were shockingly democratic. Captains were elected. Captains could be removed. Loot was split by share, not by rank. A captain might get 1.5 or 2 shares, while an ordinary crewman got one. On a Royal Navy ship, by contrast, the hierarchy was brutal, and if you were injured in battle, pirate crews often paid you compensation. Lose an arm? You got a payout. Lose a leg? You got a payout. On a pirate ship, that was basically workers' compensation. And this is where some of the biggest names in pirate history enter the story. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, learned under Hornigold before becoming infamous on his own. Charles Vane became one of the most violent and hard-to-control pirates in Nassau. And Anne Bonny and Mary Read, two of the most famous women ever associated with piracy, sailed with Calico Jack Rackham. Nassau, for a few years, functioned almost like a pirate state. No taxes unless you took them from somebody else. No king unless he could outgun you. No real law except whatever your crew agreed to. Britain reacts. That was never going to last. Ships were being attacked. Insurance costs were rising. Colonial governors were panicking. And the British Empire finally decided Nassau had become a problem it could no longer ignore. So in 1718, Britain chose a different solution. Not a fleet, not a siege, a pardon. And they sent one very specific man to deliver it. His name was Woodes Rogers, and he wasn't some clean-cut naval hero. He was a former privateer, which meant Britain picked a man who understood piracy because he had already lived by the same rules. Rogers arrived in Nassau in July 1718 with a royal pardon, also known as the Act of Grace. It offered full amnesty to any pirate who surrendered and promised to quit piracy. No trial, no noose, just walk away. And it worked. Benjamin Hornigold, the man who helped build Nassau's pirate world and once trained Blackbeard, accepted the pardon. Then he did something that stunned even by pirate standards. He went to work for Rogers. Using everything he knew about the harbor and the crews he used to sail with, Hornigold became a pirate hunter for the very government he had spent years fighting. That was not just a change of side, that was betrayal. Some pirates took the pardon and tried to disappear. Others refused. Charles Vane rejected it outright and sailed out under fire rather than surrender. Blackbeard left Nassau and headed north, where he eventually made a shady arrangement with the governor of North Carolina. But that would not save him for long, because the British were no longer just off.